Hey everybody, it's Aaron, and welcome to my VTOL VR Make Stuff series, which will be a little bit different than my VTOL VR Learn Stuff series. In this series, I'll more show you how to work with specific concepts or tools in the map editor or mission editor, and in my Learn Stuff series, you're going to kind of just go on the journey with me and whatever I'm doing, designing my Shlobovian conflict that you guys should see in the Steam workshop. So this one's supposed to be short and concise. Then that being said, we'll jump right into the map editor. You can choose to open existing maps. Don't really need to explain that. Start a new one. You'll be given a couple of options. So you can start with an archipelago. You can use random seeds, and these random seeds will kind of generate the way the terrain looks. You can choose a size as far as how big you want the area to be that it generates. The island size depending on how big you want each chunk to be, and then the overall mountain height that's inside the generated terrain. That works the same if you're choosing mountain lakes. It's just structured a little bit differently. So it's up to you if you want to use either one of those. It's not my preference to use either one of those. I actually like using height maps. And if you actually jump over to my Learn Stuff series in episode 1 or 2, I'll show you a cool tool online to actually get height maps from anywhere in the world. So I'd suggest checking out the other series. And here, and just like in all the other ones, I didn't really show them, you can choose the biome type. So if you really want to choose something that's more Arctic or desert to go with your story or your mission, you can. So first we'll select the height map, and I'll choose a random one. And I want a water border for sure. I'm not quite sure why I'm not getting a water border. There we go. Alright, so we'll just take this map, and when we click OK, I believe we'll have to give it a name, and we'll design this as one of my maps for the Shlobovian conflict. So this will be Outer Shlobovia Grant View, I don't know, something random. Alright, so we'll back out a little bit here, and we'll do the quick rundown of what we're looking at. So pretty easy to see. The file save, edit, allows you to put a title and a description in, and you can choose whether you want to upload it to Steam or not. Over here in the panels on the right, you can add new static objects. You can choose to add bases. And they'll obviously just kind of put wherever you put them. You can choose to put in a dock if you want to be near water. I've never actually tried to drop one of these in my maps yet, so I don't know how I gotta quite place it, but not a big deal. You can choose individual buildings if you're trying to build a town by yourself, or you want to try to spruce up one of the towns that the city painter paints, which we'll look at in episode 2. A good array of buildings that you can choose from. And they have all the different types of, I guess, city levels, I guess, from downtown to midtown to suburbs and rural. So just for me, this isn't really SimCity. I don't want to get into too much manual management of my towns. I'm very happy that a town painter was added. So much more helpful. Roads, very, very simple. There's a 2-lane and a 4-lane. You got to be careful when trying to put roads near, like starting here and then trying to come down here and do other things like this, because if you try to connect roads sometimes in a weird way, the elevation can sometimes get in the way and may cause an issue. As you start to design more and more maps, you'll see what I'm talking about. But the roads are very, very easy to use. Just work on the midpoint click end system. So as you saw me there, click, you'll get your first, I guess I got to select the road first, click, and you'll get your first point, and then you want to set a midpoint, and then you'll set your end point. So you can make straight lines, curves, it all works pretty well. So easy to get the hang of. Terrain and city painting. So this is the city painter, and this will allow you to change the radius of the circle that allows you to paint. The strength will determine the density of what you're painting. So you'll really notice it when you get into the terrain editor, and then the shape will make the orange and green circles grow further and closer apart, which will change the density. So the orange part of the circle that you see and on the inside is very dense, and then the green circle to the orange circle part is not so dense. So if I'm to move it to the right, you'll notice the orange part gets smaller, so things are a bit looser. Again, easier to see with the terrain editor, versus if I'm over here and I make the whole thing dense, it's just, when you're editing terrain, it'll make it so that it kind of gets hard edges sometimes if you hold it down too long, but you'll have to kind of play with it a little bit to get a feel for how to mess with the strength and the shape a little bit, and we'll kind of get more into a little bit of that with episode 2. And then managing the terrain. So the tool will height and raise and lower the terrain. And we'll make the strength so we can see it a little bit better. So it's an easy tool to use, but it's also, depending on the strength that you have set, as you can see, it's also very, very easy to go overboard with it if you're not paying attention. And that's the strength at like a third of the way. I mean, if you're up, like, the thing raises fast. So you just got to pay attention to what you're doing, and the big key is here, pay attention to the raising or lowering. So I very often forget that I'm not holding shift, or I accidentally hold the wrong key and I'll raise terrain instead of lower it, and depending on what you're doing and how fast stuff goes, it's just easy to dig down to the water, or it's easy to make a mountain very quickly. So play with the tools at your discretion to get comfortable with them. Flatten, pretty self-explanatory, as you'll be able to see, just flattens the terrain out so I can fix these bumps that I create, as well as smooth terrain from the height map, and we'll see a little bit more about that in episode 2 as well. And then the level tool will allow me to set a specific height for the ground I'm generating, so it stops at that level. So it's kind of easy to control when you want to design specific things. And if you guys check out the Steam workshop for a map called the Runway to Pathway, it is a map that I made that's a very unique and interesting build that actually has a cool, I'm going to air quote, runway here to a base that is dug into a mountain. And so in VR, it's actually really, really cool. And just dive down into the mountain, land at the base, refuel, restock, fly back out on the other side. There's the exact same kind of mountain tunnel there. And it's just a really cool map. It's a unique build. I'm going to use it in my Slavovian conflict story. So here is the basic overview of how the map editor works. And stick forward to episode 2 so that you can kind of see how to better finesse a lot of this ugly looking terrain that you see here, to kind of smooth it out and make it look a little bit better. Alrighty, see you guys in episode 2.